Well, hello everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to the Jerez circuit in the south of Spain for the opening rounds of the 2015 Radical European Masters. We've got a triple header to look forward to throughout the course of the weekend. We've got a single race today and then two races tomorrow. Well, at the moment, the circuit is bathed in glorious sunshine, and it's a warm welcome from myself, Ben Evans. Alongside me from Radical Sports Cars is Will Brown. And Will, a very different looking championship for 2015.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's going to be fascinating, particularly this weekend, as we're visiting a circuit to which the Radical Masters have never visited. So Jerez is a welcome addition to the calendar. And yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Two new cars for the championship, a raft of new regulations as well. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out today.
And it was a very different looking grid from qualifying, because first thing this morning it was very, very wet, which means that we saw the Radical SR3 of Bradley Ellis absolutely flying during qualifying. He's going to be lining up second on the grid. He shares the front row of the grid with former Radical European Masters champion going back to 2013, the Brazilian driver Victor Correa. And Victor does know Jerez from his days competing in the Euro Formula Open. Correa, who is sharing with John Harrison for the weekend. There he is, ensconced in the cockpit, away from racing, actually training to become a lawyer, but back in the driving seat for the weekend in the very distinctive orange and white SR8 he shares with Harrison. It is the SR3 then, which is actually being started by mistake by Andy Cummings. Bradley Ellis at the time. It's Cummings who starts the race. This is Manhal Alos, who lines up fourth on the grid. Alos, a stalwart competitor in Radical Racing. The Radical European Masters was 11th in last year's Radical European Masters after a slightly disappointing season, but also a season that was marked with very, very high standards at the front of the field, particularly from Bradley Smith and Tristan Vidas, who were the dominant drivers throughout the campaign. It's James Swift then who returns to Radical Racing, who lines up third on the grid. Swift, who we saw at some of these events last year competing in the International GT Open category alongside Sean Balfe. And Swift just readying himself. It looks very, very sunny. Well, it's actually a little bit chillier than perhaps that the pictures are giving the indication of. It's just about touching 20 degrees, but a lot lower temperature than maybe we were expecting.
Yeah, and all the teams tested in fantastic conditions yesterday. It was a light breeze and it was very dry and sunny. And then this morning we're greeted with damp patches when they arrived at the circuit, and then a downpour just before qualifying. So that really threw a cat amongst the pigeons, and consequently we've seen a couple of the SR3s which are very, very well balanced. A really lovely car to drive even in the wet, sort of further up the field than maybe we would have expected for qualifying.
And we just had a glimpse of Shaheen Nouri, who is in one of the new SR3s, one of two in this race.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll come back to the two cars in a minute that are new for this year, as we just see one of the stalwarts there of Radical European Masters, Terence Woodward.
Yeah, so Terence Woodward, again another driver, had a disappointing season last year, finished 8th in the standings with just the solitary podium, and he and Ross Kaiser, his long-time driving partner, just kept encountering problems throughout the course of the year. So the grid begins to be cleared as we have a look at Marcello Marattiotto and his co-pilot Marco Cencetti. And Marattiotto making a very, very welcome return to competition in the Radical European Masters this weekend.
It's fantastic to have Marattiotto back after his enormous and really rather scary shunt at Spa last year. But no, he's raring to go. He's back to full fitness and can't wait to get this season started. And they could be in with a real shot for the title this year, as they're a supremely fast pairing. He with the very quick Marco Cencetti, an Italian driver as well.
Yes, and he is an SR3 this weekend. And you might be saying, well, why is Marcello Marattiotto an SR3 not an SR8? The answer to that is Mrs. Marattiotto. And so his return to racing is in something a little bit less powerful than the car in which he became a social media sensation at Spa last year. And joking aside, the safety standards construction of the cars, absolutely fantastic. You never want to test it, but Marattiotto did in a big way, and it is wonderful to see him back on the grid. So a slightly different format for this year, which we should talk to you about, because the races have been extended by 10 minutes in length. So now going to be 60 minutes in duration, and that also means the pit window has been extended. So we have 20 minutes of racing, then the pit window is open for the middle third of the race, so from 20 minutes in until the 40-minute mark, and then the pit window closes, and it is there for the shootout in the remaining 20 minutes. And the pit window will going to be also very dynamic this year, because we have got, as ever, the two classes, the Masters class and then the Supersport class. But the Masters class, we've got two cars in it. The SR8, which we have seen for many years, and this weekend the race debut of the new Spiders.
Yeah, so over the winter of 2014 into 2015, Radical have brought two really exciting new racing car models into the range.
So let's just quickly have a look at the grid then, with Victor Correa and Andy Cummings, Bradley Ellis car on the front row, then James Swift and Manhal Alos, Terence Woodward and Shaheen Nouri, row 3. From Andrew Ferguson and Marcello Maritotto, then Alex Mortimer, Jay Patterson, James Abbott and Jaap Bartels. So Abbott, I think we can expect to see coming through from 11th on the grid, the same for Alex Mortimer. I think it might be Jeremy Ferguson who lines up in 7th on the grid. That's Mike Cantillon and Pierre Schroeder. In fact, Alain Costa with Jean Gandart completing the field after he had a couple of ventures in qualifying. So yes, let's go back to the Spider. We've seen an example of one there, that the blue car just working through the front of shot.
Yeah, so whereas we've always had the SR8 in the Masters class now, and that's a model that continues into 2015, its 10th year, but joining it in the Masters class is the new RXC Spider, which is Radical's most advanced open racing car yet. It's a 3-litre 440 horsepower V8 machine, a slightly bigger platform than the outgoing SR8. A more stable platform as well. The weight distribution is almost 50-50, the same as the SR3 is, so it's a really nice neutral handling car, obviously with a bigger platform as well, bigger aero, more advanced aero, better electronics, a new 7-speed gearbox. There's a huge raft of new technology on this car, new to the Radical range. So yeah, that's a very, very exciting car, and as you can see through the weekend, as the teams have got to grips with these new cars, the lap times have continued to tumble.
And I think really pertinent for this race is we know the Spider can do the 6-minute race duration without having to refuel.
Yeah, so the FIA fuel cells that are fitted to the new RXC Spiders carry a quite incredible 108 litres of fuel once they're fully brimmed, but certainly 100 litres, whereas the older and slightly smaller SR8s are carrying a 77 litre maximum fuel load. So consequently they'll be very, very marginal on fuel, and I would expect all of the SR8 teams to be taking a fuel stop as well within that pit window.
And those that do refuel, they have to add another 30 seconds mandatory minimum time to their pit stop to complete that refueling safely. And therefore that really throws the dynamic of the race on its head, because as you're seeing from this formation lap around the 4.4 kilometre Jerez circuit, it's a sinuous track. It's one we're overtaking, we understand, may be quite tricky for some of these cars because of the remarkably short braking distances due to the aerodynamic grip of all the cars in the Radical European Masters, and also the fact the longest straight, which is the run from turns 5 to 6, is only 600 metres long.
Yeah, that's right, and it's a circuit that's characterised by sort of many sequences of corners. They all flow sort of one into the other, so there's not a huge number of braking opportunities.
No, unfortunately,
or overtaking opportunities.
One or two of them had braking car opportunities in qualifying. Mike Cantillon and Jean Gandart, so cars 9 and 20 did have a little bit of a coming together. Both have been repaired as we form up then behind the pace car. So it is the orange and white car of Victor Correa, alongside him the black and yellow machine of Andy Cummings, and we expect probably Correa to jump clear initially. Then we have got James Swift and Manhal Alos on row 2. Swift the black and blue car, Alos the all-white machine, as the pace car takes them round this final tight hairpin and pulls off at the very, very last moment. And Andy Cummings has maybe got a little bit out of formation here. It's going to be a rolling start, as ever, of course, in the Radical European Masters. The red lights flash out, the season gets underway, and Victor Correa streaks into the early advantage, moving up to second place is the white car of Manhalos. But James Swift disputes the matter into turn 1, and it's Swift who edges through in second place, Alos third, Woodward in fourth, and then Andy Cummings drops down to fifth. Although the one for second, as immediately Alos was looking to try and fight his way through.
Yeah, that's right. We just see Alos taking a very tight line through turn 3 there, and has held into that position pretty well.
Manhalos now under pressure from Terence Woodward. Out front, though, is Victor Correa, and Alos looking to the inside into turn 5. That would be heroically brave. He managed to pull it off as they swoop through the rapid turn 5. Really nice corner this. The camber changes 2 or 3 times through its lengthy radius, then they plunge downhill into the heavy braking zone for the hairpin at turn 6. And still defending is Swift. Meanwhile, looking to make a little bit of progress is the blue Spider. That is the car of, I think it's Jeremy, or we're seeing Andrew Ferguson on the timing screen, so they may have switched around. We'll try and get a look at the number. It's one of the Fergusons nonetheless, who is the first of the Spiders.
Another car you can just see charging his way up through the field there as well is returning radical racer Jamie Patterson. So Jamie's been out of competition for a few years and made a very big impact last time he was here in the Radical Masters, and already he's fighting his way back up through the field, so he could be one to watch a little bit later on in the race.
Yeah, Jamie Patterson, the 2008 Radical UK Cup champion, sharing with the extremely quick Alex Capadia for this weekend, as on the braking zone through to complete the first lap. Victor Correa for second place, stabilised the fight over fifth. Is the one to watch as bobbing and weaving as Alex Mortimer looking to fight his way past the Andy Cummings and Bradley Ellis car. Meanwhile, Mike Cantillon is looking to the inside of Jaap Bartels through the final hairpin and then along the start and finish straight up into turn 1. I was watching some of the testing yesterday from turn 1, and the braking zone from these cars is so short, and it is Andrew Ferguson in car 46.
That's right.
Strongly in 5th.
Yeah, as you say, particularly into that first uphill first corner, it's quite staggering how late you can get on the brakes.
So they swoop out of turn 2 through turn 3 and then begin to set up for turn 4. There's Pierre Schroeder just towards the back of the field, a former competitor in the Euroboss series in the 1997 Spec Formula 1 Benetton. So Pierre Schroeder, the driver originally from Luxembourg, now based in London, circulating in 16th. So looking to make the move, Alex Mortimer to the inside of Andrew Ferguson. Nice move that from Mortimer. He slides through. Jamie Patterson also there showing strongly in the black car, and you get a really good demonstration of the difference between the Spider and the SR8. They run in the same class, but the Spider is just that bit bigger.
Yeah, that's right. So around a tight, twisty circuit like Jerez here, it's a little bit more of a challenge just to obviously fight your way through. But no, the big benefit with these is a bigger tyre contact patch and a huge amount of aero. So the corner speeds of these are just phenomenal.
But the team's really having to learn about the cars as they've gone this weekend, as Patterson closes up onto the tail of Andrew Ferguson. Andrew finished 20th in last year's Radical European Masters, coming under a little bit of pressure, and then just in behind a pair of them in the all-blue car, that's James Abbott. Good battle a little bit further back between Jean Gandar and Alain Costa, I think it was, and Michele Maritiotto. So nice battles through the field. There's a little bit of a look to the inside there in the fight for 6th. Jamie Patterson to the inside of Andrew Ferguson. There's Alain Costa. He has got Shaheen Nouri and Andy Cummings just in behind him.
Jaap Bartels just taking a look there as well as he made it stick. Oh, he's sucked up right tight behind. Yeah, it looks like he has just made it now and can take up the chase to Andy Cummings there.
So some really nice battles begin to form around the circuit. Looking to challenge the inside. That's a brilliant move. He pulls it off from Jamie Patterson. We'll find out in a moment's time. Jaap Bartels and Shaheen Nouri also having a good fight, but it was Patterson who went to the inside at turn 5 as they head down the back straight. It's the fight ahead of this one, and it did work because now Andrew Ferguson coming under pressure from James Abbott. So wonderful, wonderful move that from Jamie Patterson as Andy Cummings under all sorts of pressure from Jaap Bartels. They've got Shaheen Nouri just in behind them. Nouri, although he's Swiss in origin, actually based in Lagos, Nigeria, where he runs a number of radio stations, amongst other things. Closes up behind Bartels. And then just behind the pair of them, we have got Mike Cantillon, former star of the Caterham Euro Cup. So this is now the fight for 7th position between Andrew Ferguson, that is the blue car with the red roll hoop, and then just behind him, James Abbott. Meanwhile, here is our race leader, Victor Correa. And Correa doing exactly as we thought he would, Will. Streaking clear at the front of the pack. We're 5.5 minutes in, and he's almost 5 seconds clear.
Yeah, that's right, and he'll be handing over to John Harrison, who really impressed last year, particularly at the end of the season with his solo drive in the 3 races at Barcelona. So no, it's of course Victor, who was racing with Christian Kronegard before, and prior to that on his own as well in the Radical UK Cup. So no, really good to have the young Brazilian back. Of course, a former F3 Open star as well.
It's Victor Correa. Heads along the back straight into the heavy braking zone for turn 6. The corner which gained infamy 18 years ago when Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher had their coming together, which decided the 1997 Formula 1 world title. No dramas at all for Victor Correa as he swoops downhill through this nice and flowing layout here in Jerez. It's a track the drivers really enjoy because it is such a challenge, because as you were saying on the formation lap, Will, the corners come thick and fast after one another, and having that rhythm, having that visibility, having that mental agility to be a couple of corners ahead is absolutely key.
Yeah, that's right. Which in many ways is not dissimilar to what you'd be doing in something like rally driving. As you say, it's sort of you've got to think 2 or 3 corners ahead to make sure that the obvious racing line through the corner is not necessarily the quickest one here if it's got to compromise you in the next couple of corners, and there's a lot of complex 2 or 3 corner sequences. So no, there really is no let up.
So here is James Swift in second position. And one of the things that was asked of all the Radical European Masters drivers at the start of the season was to list 3 items they would take to them on a desert island. Many of them we probably can't broadcast, but James Swift, under the heading of I Like Eating, suggested pizza, fried chicken and hamburgers.
Something in deference to his role as the owner of a number of pizza franchises, I believe.
Yes, he does list his living as pizza making, and I think you can guess which franchise it is by the name on the side of the car. Either that or he is an incredibly good talker to get a different brand on it. As we return to fight a little bit further down the field, that's Marcello Maratotto just tucked up behind Bartels and Maratotto, easing himself back in, but he's right there with some of the cars we'd expect to feature in the Super Sport class. They're all bottled up behind Andy Cummings. Then it's Shaheen Nouri in the white and lime green car. And Nouri thinks about the move to the inside. Nothing doing there. Shaheen runs a little bit offline, and he just got caught in the turbulent air. It meant he understeered through turn 5. To have an educated right foot to avoid firing himself into the gravel. It does leave him open though to a challenge from Mike Cantillon, who forces the inside. Nouri squeezes him.
Just thinks the best of it there at the very last minute. Yeah, Cantillon had an open door and really thought he could get the legs, but as you say, just jumping out of that dirty air behind the 2 SR3s has obviously given him something to think about.
And the other factor that some of the drivers have been talking about is that with the new Spiders, because they've not raced them yet, that they haven't worked out how good a sense they're going to have of where the front of the car is under braking. Cantillon got it just right at that occasion. Yeah,
that's right. It's all the time they're learning more about the tyres, learning more about the grip. As you say, it's getting the confidence to place it exactly where you want and find out just how high those limits are.
So Mike Cantillon, who was 16th rather in last year's Radical European Masters, has been racing across Europe for many years in Caterhams and then Radical cars, being hassled by Marcello Maratotto. The Spider pulls clear on the sprint along the start and finish straight. Then they climb uphill into turn 1, and Nouri looks to the inside of Andy Cummings. Just didn't quite catch the end of that manoeuvre. We'll see momentarily whether or not that worked out. Meanwhile, we focus on James Abbott in 7th position, losing a little bit of ground to Alex Mortimer. It's Mortimer in 6th, just closing on Jamie Patterson. But this is looking quite nice here for Alex Mortimer, because the cars in front of him will have all going to have to refuel. So as long as he's within 30 seconds of the race lead, at the point at which he hands over to Chris Hyman, then that car's got every opportunity of coming through for the win.
Yeah, and there's one other factor which we haven't talked about yet, which could also make a difference, and that in terms of the actual driving experience of the Spider is because it's a bigger car and you've got things like power assisted steering, and the airflow of the car is a little more refined as well inside the cabin. It should be a less physical environment. Obviously the car's still enormously quick, and there's a huge amount of G-force to cope with when you're driving the car, but it should be a less physical car to drive than the SR8. So what we're quite likely to see at the end of the race is that the guys that traditionally would have found it really difficult after sort of 20 or even 30 minutes of racing should be fresher in the car, they should be more alert, and their lap time should stay constant as a result.
Just behind him then is James Abbott, who finished well up in last year's British Formula Ford Championship with a few wins along the way. Also was third in the Supersport class of the Radical European Masters last year as well. And then we have got making good progress as well Alain Costa, the Monegasque driver. And this seems like it's been a big step up in performance for Alain over the winter. So we're just about 11 minutes in to the opening race of the season in the Radical European Masters in Jerez. And this is your race leader, Victor Correa. In second place, it's James Swift. Third is Manhal Alos. Fourth, Terence Woodward. Fifth, Jamie Patterson. Sixth is Alex Mortimer in the first of the Spiders. And it is the Andy Cummings Bradley Ellis car which currently leads the Supersport class in 11th position.
Yeah, Correa lapping incredibly consistently at the moment. That last lap just 2/10 off his best lap of the race so far. So he's really dictating the pace at the moment.
Very nice stuff this from Victor Correa, not overly working the car, and he's got a quick co-driver in the form of John Harrison to whom he'll pass on the baton. And of course, this being the opening race of the year, that they can accumulate additional time in the pits for the subsequent races, but they won't have any today.
No, that's right. So we brought in the success second system at the start of last year, which depending on your first, second or third last year gave you an extra 15, 10 or 5 seconds. Well, this year that system's been extended slightly down to the 5th place position, so it'll be slightly longer stops for the first, second and third, and then 5 seconds for 4th and 5th as well. Just see a replay there of Shaheen just having a spin there. Looks like he's yet held it, luckily slid out onto the tarmac, and he rejoins.
And what was nice there in the super slow mo is you could see Shaheen going for the gear before he'd even stopped spinning. So he is back on his way. Shaheen Nouri, who was 4th in Supersport class in last year's Radical European Masters Championship. Victor Correa continuing to extend his advantage. He has set the fastest lap of the race, not unsurprisingly, a 1 minute 42.859. He leads by almost 8.5 seconds. The orange car really just flowing around the Jerez circuit. And strongly recommend, if you've never been, to take the opportunity to come and visit this track for a race meeting, because what you don't get a sense of from television is the way that the layout loops back around itself, and from any of the grandstands you can actually see a good portion of the circuit. It really is an absolutely wonderful facility, very friendly place to come and watch motor racing. Also lovely surrounding countryside and towns.
Yeah, absolutely. You very much get a sense that the circuit is sort of a product of its surroundings, and it really sits well within the local topography, and there's some gradient change there as well. It's a fascinating circuit, and it's one that the drivers have never visited before with the Radical European Masters, so a very welcome circuit to kick off the year.
So Correa reels off his 8th lap. At the very far end of the pit straight, you can see James Swift, who is across the start and finish line now, and Swift giving away almost a second, in fact more than that, 1.3 seconds last round. In third place, Manhal Alos, and Alos just listed one item for his being stranded on the desert island, and that was the race director Brian Poulter.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think even Manhal, by his own admission, would say that he's never been far from controversy with radical racing over the years, but no, he's a real character, and great to have him back on the grid this year.
Meanwhile, this is the battle between Andy Cummings and now Marcello Maritotto, and there you see perfectly illustrated the difference between the new SR3, as demonstrated by Maritotto, and the older style in the hands of Andy Cummings. And really like the front splitter on the new SR3. It looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's a fabulous looking car, isn't it? And as you said, that new double tunneled front diffuser gives you a huge amount of extra downforce, particularly in the braking zones, because you're maintaining a good airflow under the car under braking as the car nose compresses, and then again with the open deck tail, a really good airflow out the rear of the car as well.
And what I think we're really seeing is that both Maritotto and Nouri can follow much closer to their rivals than they perhaps could a year ago when you had the other aerodynamic configuration. You can see how close Maratotto gets up underneath the rear wing of Andy Cummings.
Yes, because when you're at speed and you jump on the brakes, of course, your maximum braking efficiency is when you've got maximum aero load on the front of the car. Now, in the dirty air, that's so much more difficult. As
we got somebody in trouble, and that's Alex Mortimer. So Alex Mortimer, something has gone wrong. Whether or not that is a mechanical issue or he's recovering from a spin, we don't know. But he has been overhauled by a good number of his rivals. And that'll be hugely disappointing for Alex and co-driver Chris Hyman, because they were looking very well poised to put together a good result from this one. So that sees him slipping Mortimer down to about 14th, 15th position. We're only 4 minutes away from the pit window opening. This is the battle for Supersport Class Honours between Andy Cummings in the black and yellow car. Then it's Marcello Maratotto in the all-black machine, and Shahin Nouri recovering from his rotation in the green and white car, closing up as well. This is the sort of battling that we were hoping for, and certainly for Nouri it could become quite an interesting race. He is going a full 60 minutes single-handedly, whereas in the case of Cummings and Maratotto, they'll both be handing over to faster co-pilots. Mid-race pit stops, Bradley Ellis takes over from Andy Cummings, Marco Cincetti, Marcello Maratotto. And continuing his way there was Alex Mortimer. Didn't go into the pits, and that suggests he may have just had a bit of a moment.
Yeah, absolutely, that's right. And as you're saying there, Shahin doing the whole race on his own, and that'll be good preparation for when he does the Brit Car 24 Hours in about 2 weeks' time. He's part of the 4-driver team that are racing the Radical RXC Works Run car in the Brit Car.
Brit Car 24 Hours, I've commentated on that several times. It takes about a week to recover from it, as Andrew Ferguson is being closed in on by Mike Cantillon. Gets the power down nice and early as he squirts out of the hairpin, and again the Spiders would appear to be able to follow much closer to each other than perhaps we'd have expected, and we've seen previously with the SR8s, which bodes really well for the racing this season.
Yeah, it should be fascinating, and so particularly because you can close up so much closer in the braking zone and still maintain that grip and that initial bite when you turn in to try and pass. So yeah, this is going to be really thrilling.
And Cantillon just heading into turn 11 chicane now. He's not quite close enough to challenge Andrew Ferguson. Ferguson runs over the curbs, and this is a circuit where you can take a big bite out of the curbing, because it's a track probably better known for motorcycle racing and the MotoGP. Therefore, you've got really low-lying curbs which the drivers can really attack.
Yeah, that's right. You can tell now Andrew knows that car's there. He's looking in his mirrors. He's there's a big slide there by Cantillon, but well collected.
Yeah, Mike Cantillon a little enthusiastic with his right foot, as Terence Woodward in the fight for 4th place has got Jamie Patterson up on his tail. Patterson the all-black car with the white helmet, Terence Woodward black and blue car with the black helmet. And Woodward, a former Radical European Masters champion back in 2012 alongside Ross Kaiser. Patterson just shows himself to the inside line, can't quite force the move. And again, these are two cars which in the second half of the race will really fly, because Woodward hands over to Ross Kaiser. In the case of Jamie Patterson, Ats Capodia takes over from him.
Two incredibly matched combinations, really. Jamie and Terence are very, very experienced Radical, particularly SR8 racers. Obviously Jamie's taken a few years out now, but he was incredibly quick, and this will be a really, really close pairing. I couldn't call it either way, really.
I think the other thing to say is that these drivers, the SR8 is not a clubman's car that you can jump into. You've got to be a really accomplished and skilled racing driver to get the best out of this machinery, because the power delivery is so quick. The car's rocket ships in acceleration, and then still have a lot of grip through the corners, but probably a little bit more power than grip, and that makes them enormously fun to drive, but a challenge. Yeah,
relative to the rest of the range, the weight distribution in the SR8 is a little more rearward, so you've got to think a little bit more about the way you apply the power, and just be patient, really. And it's the same thing with all the Radicals. It's all about letting the car do the work. The corner speed comes from smooth lines and not over driving, and if you can do that, obviously you're not tiring yourself out. You're maintaining.
That's Mike Cantillon, who has had some sort of a drama. Let's have a look at what happened. So he went to the inside of Andrew Ferguson. He was saying he was being optimistic with the right foot. Oh, that is very odd. And then the car just grinds to a halt, and Cantillon can't even pull it off the circuit. So as the pit window opens, we could well be seeing a safety car here, because with a car stuck on track, there's going to be a little bit of jeopardy involved for the marshals, and in fact he's right on the apex coming into turn 7. There is Cantillon, spotted by Woodward and Harrison in time. So the 20-minute pit window is open, and the team's going to have to be alert to the strategy, because we've got a full course yellow which has been declared. So they'll be looking to jump into the pits any second now, so they don't get caught out here. It's a shame, because we just had some battles really begin to shape up, particularly this one for 4th and 5th position. So they swoop through turn 14 onto the turn 15 hairpin, and now looking to the inside and going for the move, Jamie Patterson. He almost made it stick, but he runs out of road. The car understeers, and that was really wily driving from Terence Wood. He could see he was coming. He just jumped on the anchors, let Jamie Patterson have his moment and reclaim that 4th place.
Yeah, a little bit of over-exuberance there by Jamie. He obviously thought he had the grip, and unfortunately he was a little bit too ambitious there.
Well, that's good to see. Mike Cantillon has got the car back up and running, heads into the pit lane, and we can change over here to Jamie Constable if he so desires, but with the laptop being plugged in, I think there's a little bit of work to be done first. Gosh, the team hats, you'd argue, might be against certainly taste regulations, not sporting regulations.
Yeah, that clearly distinguishes the regulations to bring the to bring the teams up to parity and ensure that there's no advantage over having a huge team of drivers. You're limited to 2 extra members of staff working on the car if you've got a 2-driver team, or just a single one team member if you've got a single driver team. So no, it looks like they're continuing the driver's seat, and so there's going in for Jamie Constable, so that's good to see.
And are the fluorescent yellow hats or fluorescent green hats instead of the bibs this year?
Yes, that's right. They're easily identified, obviously without covering up any sponsors' logos on the respective teams' jackets. And the pink ones are for the RPE staff, Radical Performance Engines, who are sort of designated central staff that can look after the wider range of issues and provide support to the teams.
Certainly visible. I expect we'll be getting a call from the space station at some point during this race saying that they picked up those hats from orbit, because they're certainly distinguishable.
Well, and they're also very useful for visiting sort of nightclubs in the evening. You can use them as well for 80s nights.
Absolutely. I'd like to think that hard house music and the like is being pumped out of the garages in keeping. Meanwhile, we've got the serious business of several of the pit stops underway, and that's the driver change that has happened early as we thought it might. Bradley Ellis taking over from Andy Cummings. We can expect to see that car, number 6, going pretty strongly thereafter.
Yeah, of course, 20-minute pit window is much bigger than we've had before, as you see in the first of the refuelling exercises here. And
that's Jamie Patterson who is in. Alex Capadia will take over. There is Alex waiting for the refuelling to be completed. Looks like they've I was about to say they've rehearsed that, and then he gets his leg caught in the roll hoop, but it hasn't really delayed him, because what a lot of the really well-drilled teams will be looking to do, Will, is if they've got that additional 30 seconds, is complete that pit stop ahead of time and then just wait it out.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So there's a 30-second pit stop requirement for safety, as you said, just to make sure that everybody does it in a good, safe manner. So yeah, it'll be. Yeah, that's right. So clear, engines running. All Jamie has to do now is jump out the car and away they go.
Nicely done from Jamie Patterson as well. And we just saw a truck moving across the front picture at turn 1. I hope that was just moving into position rather than we've got somebody stranded in the gravel trap, which would be most unfortunate. And Capodia loses the engine as he gets underway, gets it back, and away he goes down the pit lane. Yes, we do have a waved yellow flag at turn 1. Now, what is the reason for that? We wonder. We'll find out in due course. We're not seeing yellow flag being signalled on the timing screen, but as the camera pans across, hopefully we'll get a glimpse of if there is anybody in the gravel trap at turn 1. Capadia on his way. Here is the race leader, Victor Cray, and I think we could expect to see Victor So we're just over 25 minutes into this one, staying out until pretty deep into the pit window.
Yeah, with 20 minutes, it's quite a long opportunity, and it gives the team some freedom to mix and match and really exercise some ingenuity in terms of pit stop strategy. But whereas tradition, we've only really had in previous years maybe 3 or 4 laps where there's been an opportunity, but certainly no longer.
A problem there for Alex Mortimer again, as he is clearly something is plaguing him, so he heads back round potentially to the pits. As I think it's a really welcome addition to the championship this year is this longer pit window, because it does bring that element of strategy into these longer races. Previously it was a factor of you could maybe stay out 2 laps longer, which might just allow you to jump 1 or 2 cars you were dicing with, but with a 20-minute pit window you can make some really big gains.
Yeah, that's right, particularly if the weather's changeable, and as we've seen today, there was an opportunity, there still is a possibility of some rain. There is rain in the area.
So there is the number 58 car of Pierre Schroeder. He is being chased down by James Swift. That's James putting a lap on him, which he does without any problems. And this has been good progress from James Swift. He will be doing the entire race single-handedly.
We also see that Jaap Bartels has handed over to Stuart Mosley, who's now going to be fighting his way back up through the field. So, as we've seen so often in the past in Radical Masters, you've got pro drivers out of position, amateur drivers out of position. So, this should make for a really fascinating second half of the race.
And Stuart Mosley's a pretty good benchmark driver for just how much he can extract in terms of pace from the Spider. But he's bottled up in a little bit of traffic at the moment. James Swift has been able to pick his way through it, and Swift essentially lapping some of the cars around him because he is yet to make his pit stop in second position, 15 seconds adrift of Victor Correa. Then we've got Stuart Mosley, he's found his way through the traffic. Then we have got Philippe Muffat, Stuart Mosley and Pierre Schroeder. They're all busy battling for position at the moment as Manhal Alos, so scything his way through in third. We haven't seen much of Manhal, but this is a nice, controlled, smooth performance. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a very, very, very controlled drive from him, and if he carries up this pace, then he's certainly odds on for a podium at the end of the race.
And into the pit lane now comes Manhal Alos, and he's one of the drivers who will have to refuel. So he brings the car down to the pit lane speed limit, which feels infuriatingly slow. Gets the car brought to a halt, so Alos will vacate the cockpit, and as soon as he's clear the fuel will go in. Anders Manhal, in goes the fuel. Alos gesticulating to the team, clearly something not quite to his liking. The wheel of the 61 car doesn't want to change too much, because he's been going so strongly thus far. So Alos just clearing the seatbelts out of the way as Victor Correa, so we're almost at half race distance, is now inexorably moving clear of James Swift to about the tune, well, also around it's 1.8 seconds a lap, and that's been the real difference here between first and second in this race thus far, is that Correa has been remorselessly consistent, whereas James Swift, particularly with the traffic, a little bit more variable in his lap times.
Yeah, that's right. He's sort of ruthlessly hunted down the back markers and made it very easy to get through. Correa's, his pace is just incredibly consistent. So if he carries this on, and John last year really impressed us, particularly towards the end of the year, Barcelona. He managed to scoop the driver of the day amongst other things. So he could really be one to watch this year.
Victor Correa first came onto my radar in a British Formula Ford race on the Brands Grand Prix circuit in 2008, where he was involved in a battle with Wayne Boyd, which was one of the most lurid and leery fights I think I've ever seen in a motor race. Unbelievable commitment from Victor Correa that afternoon. Very different discipline required today, but consistent nonetheless. So here is Swift. He's not pitted in. We did just catch a glimpse though of Ross Kaiser, who has now taken over from Terence Wilbur. So Ross Kaiser made his pit stop, as has the car just at the front of your picture, that is James Abbott. So Abbott has had his mandatory pit stop. And this plays out very nicely for Abbott, in fact, because of the Spiders, he is the most eminent, and he has overhauled Mad Halal's through that pit stop by dint having the shorter stop.
Yeah, we've just ticked over the halfway mark.
And that is not good news for the Mike Cantillon Jamie Constable car, which again rolls to a halt. Was flapping bodywork.
Seeing a little bit of bodywork damage there.
He's clearly had didn't quite get a look at the side of the car to see exactly what it was. But again, hopefully whatever's caused him to come to a stop can quickly be rectified so we can get back on his way and that we don't have the intrusion of a safety car. So now this is the dilemma for John Harrison, which is, does he want 30 minutes of race time or does he want a real chance at winning it?
Well, yeah, although, as you say, with a safety car, this could really throw things up in the air, because these eights obviously have stayed out longer and have got a lighter fuel load. If they might want to think about rolling the dice and gambling if that takes place.
And there's also that rolling of the dice to be done. If you stay out until the very back end of the pit window, yes, you start the car heavy, but it's a little bit less fuel that needs to go and see it through to the checkered flag.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is all good fun. We are 31.5 minutes in to the opening race of the season for the Radical European Masters. Midway through the pit stops, Victor Crea leads. James Swift siding his way through the traffic. There he is in car 87 in second place, although James Abbott showing he doesn't particularly want to be lapped at this moment in time. And Swift is going to try and force his way through. Nonetheless, gets his elbows out, pushes Abbott out wide. In third place, it is Ross Kaiser. Fourth is James Abbott. Fifth, Malhaus. In sixth is Alex Capolia, and Capolia losing a lot of time, relatively speaking, in the pits.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've yet to see. Well, obviously, we've still yet to see Victor and James Piddle, and also Pierre Schroeder and Jeremy Ferguson. They've already retired.
Yeah, I think Jeremy Ferguson has possibly departed from this race. So James Abbott sticking on the gears. Meanwhile, Jamie Constable is up and running and goes a lap down again to Victor Crea. So Crea has got 7.5 minutes within which to make his pit stop. He says thank you, gives the thumbs up. Not quite sure whether Jamie Constable has seen that or not. Jamie, a quick driver, a former Caterham Euro Cup champion rather, going back a decade or so ago. Crea, lovely shot there. You could see through the visor, Will, that Victor got his head turned well before the corner. He was looking already at the exit of the corner, thinking ahead, and mentally he'd already driven through turn 15, was setting up for the start and finish straight.
Yeah, it's, and you know, that's what's going to give you the competitive edge here. If you can think 2 or 3 corners ahead and plan your line through a sequence of corners, then you know you're not just attacking each one as it occurs.
And you'll often hear racing drivers talking about vision, and what they mean is that they're looking a long way ahead of them on the road, because almost the act of driving the car should be second nature. It's all about the exit speed, it's all about just stringing the lap together, so they're always thinking ahead, looking a long way ahead, trying to pick out, is there traffic I'm going to encounter, is there something I just need to be aware of? And it's a remarkable skill. It's something, if you're on the motorway in your road car, if you start getting into the discipline of, say, looking a mile ahead on the motorway, it's amazing how it alters the way you drive.
And yeah, absolutely, and we hear it a lot, you know, in our entry-level Road Class L1 Cup series, where race instructors will talk to the drivers as they're coming up through the ranks, and one of the things they'll always say is if you try and lift your eye line, lift your eyes as far as you can see, you know, take them to right to the horizon, beyond, beyond the apex, really. You know, then you very quickly find that your lap times improve, because your anticipation automatically becomes so much better.
It also becomes a lot cheaper, because I remember when I was racing in Formula Ford, the first year I did it, every time I go to a new circuit, at some point during my first day's testing, I'd be tired, my vision would go, and I'd go, oh crikey, corner, oops, on the brakes, too late, hello tyres, hello bank manager. So here's the race leader, Victor Crea. We're coming to the conclusion of the 20th lap of the race, and almost with synchronicity, Crea's lead is pretty much exactly 20 seconds. He's probably got time for 2 more full laps before he needs to duck in to make the handover to John Harrison. And I think what's really important here for Victor Carrere, by staying out, is that he's essentially overhauled the 30 seconds that they're going to have to spend additionally in the pits to refuel the car, which has jumped him up ahead of the Spiders.
And all the while he's been piling on the pace, of course, James Swift has been trying to maintain that, which will have been a hard job. That's really tiring work. So, you know, conversely, there's a little bit of psychology there in terms of the effect that he will have had on James Swift.
Well, I think it's fairly safe to say that if Swift brings the car home on the podium, he'll have certainly earned himself a stuffed crust pizza for this evening, because it's a fine return to the championship for Swift. Victor Carrere making it look so easy. And you were talking earlier, Will, about how with these radicals, the key is to look so smooth. And to watch Carrere in isolation, the car's not moving, it's just gliding around, almost Alain Prost-like, but it is devastatingly efficient.
This is where his single-seat experience is really coming into play, because he's letting the car do the work and do the driving. If you look where you want to go, and you'll instinctively steer there, and he's minimal steering inputs, minimal attitude changes in the car, and you know, that way he's going to be able to maintain the tyres better and you know, ultimately drive faster.
And what you can't get a sense of from television, or indeed unless you're in the cockpit of the cars, is that a car with a high level of aerodynamic grip has got all the grip in the world and you've got a razor's edge where it's just beginning to slide, until it's got none whatsoever. And the real key that you'll see from these really top guys is they are just dancing on that right side of the razor's edge. The car is giving them the feedback saying, I'm at the limit, but at the same time it's not stepping over. As into the pit lane now comes James Swift for his pit stop. The team wave at him into position. He will have to get out of the car before the fuel can go in. Oh, now that's interesting. A drinks bottle is being provided, but I'm not seeing any fuel.
No, they may well believe they can make it to the end of the race.
Well, quite literally rolling the dice, because we were talking about this off air earlier, and we reckon at a good race pace 50 minutes is comfortable. Another 5 minutes after that, maybe. Beyond that, it could start to be very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, we certainly know from sort of last year's 50-minute races at places, high-speed circuits like Monza, that it's 60 minutes is as long as you could really go on an SR8 if you ultimately it's all down to driving style. If he's been very careful with his driving style, maybe he's had something in the bag today, and he's been short shifting and driving very conservatively, which would possibly account for his relative pace to Carrere. So maybe we'll have to see a big surprise here.
This is fantastic stuff, isn't it? Because it adds another element of complexity to the race. So we've got deviating strategies amongst the SR8s. Now the big question is, of course, has Victor Carrere been doing the same thing? Has he been driving far enough within himself that when he hands over to John Harrison, it won't require a top-up of fuel? Comes to a halt. Indeed it will, because you can see the mechanic there with the fuel bowser. And so, by my admittedly not brilliant maths, I think James Swift is going to be taking the lead of the race by the time this pit stop's worked itself through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the Nielsen guy's not quite so confident about.
And that didn't help, did it? John Harrison trying to jump in the car while it was being refueled.
Oh, that's right. He luckily didn't get fully sat down before that, so I don't think there'll be an infringement penalty there. But
no, because obviously safety is paramount when it comes to refueling. Victor Carrere saying, "What on earth were you thinking?" As here is Ross Kaiser, and Ross on the last time split was 13 seconds adrift to James Swift. Now this could be really interesting with 20 minutes to go. The pace of Ross Kaiser is now John Harrison gets strapped in, driver from the Channel Islands. So another 20 seconds. It's quite nice to hear the ambient noise of the instructions they're giving to the driver as the steering wheel reaffixed. Harrison makes himself comfortable, the engine's started, he pulls on his way.
Yeah, very good, clean getaway there. So yeah, excellent stop, really. Considering that initial fumble there was well recovered.
So we're about to head in to the final third of the opening race of the Radical European Masters season, and the pit stops are completed now. as there is James Swift, who takes the lead of the race. His non-refueling strategy is enough to jump him over John Harrison. So now we have a race in our hands. It's Swift in the black and blue car who leads the way. It's the orange and white car of Harrison in second place. In third, and closing up on both of them, is going to be Ross Kaiser in the 88 car. And then we've got James Abbott in fourth. In number 74, fifth is Alex Capadia, and Capadia the fastest man on track at the moment, and he is closing up on the leading group with some rapidity.
That's right. So in this top four, we know we've got a car that will definitely make it to the end of the race in terms of fuel. The Spider, of course, has got more than capacity, although just been overthrown by Capadia, who's now up to fourth.
And the day gets even worse for Jamie Constable. He has been policed and has got a stop and go penalty for a pit stop infringement. And he was in 15th place anyway. He's not going to fall any lower than that. Real disappointment for him. And James Swift, not unsurprisingly, moving clear of John Harrison on Harrison's outlap, because Swift has had 45 minutes to warm up. John Harrison getting into the car cold. It's going to take him 1 or 2 laps just to get a sense of how the track conditions have changed since wet qualifying this morning.
But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's really a question now of literally and metaphorically, what has James Swift got left in the tank?
This reminds me of some of the great IndyCar races that we had in the late 1990s, where you'd see on some of the short ovals they gamble and run out of fuel with just a mile to go. Obviously, we hope that's not the case for James Swift, but it really is an unknown, and I'm sure that the team will be on the radio to John Harrison saying, we think he might be marginal on fuel. Get up close to him, hassle him, make him push harder.
At the end of the day, fuel strategy has always been an integral part of endurance racing, and the way that the radical European Masters regulations are written are to make it as accurate and realistic step up to things like Le Mans and Spa 24 Hours. Oh, it was a really, really close moment there as Manhal's dicing with James Abbott.
Yeah, so James Abbott, Manhal Elson, Stuart Mosley. This is the fight for 5th position. 3 drivers for whom give you an inch is almost against their ethics, as Alos is swarming all over the tail of Abbott. Stuart Mosley just biding his time there. He is in the white, red and black Spider in the driver of the bright yellow helmet, as Alos really looking to try and force it, and the S8 looking nice and nimble, looks to the outside line as they come up into turn 1, and he makes the move, stick around the outside of James Abbott he goes. So Manhalos snatches 5th position. It's going to be a big ask for Alos to get any further than that. The driver to watch for is the one in 4th position. Alos breaks clear. Abbott comes under threat immediately from Stuart Mosley. This is the fight then for 6th place. The honour of being the first Spider as James Abbott parks the car squarely mid the road. Stuart Mosley says, fair enough, I'll try around the outside. Can he make it stick? That would be a move of all moves. And Stuart Mosley, and then something has gone wrong there for Mosley. Maybe he's just selected the wrong gear, but the car slows suddenly. And Stuart Mosley encounters trouble.
A replay from a moment. Oh, yes, a replay of the Alos overhead to overtake there.
Lovely move that from Manhal Alos. And real pity that Stuart Mosley ejected from that fight. You can see how hard James Abbott is trying. Alos not with him. There is Stuart Mosley. The way he's looking down suggests he might be stuck in gear, because the car seems to be running okay and then gets back up to pace. So whatever the problem there was for Stuart Mosley, it would appear to have rectified itself.
The dash there, yeah. It seems to be back up to racing pace there again.
Spectacularly brave move. Here is our race leader, James Swift. He's 6.5 seconds clear of John Harrison, was 2 seconds quicker last time around. Ross Kaiser in 3rd place has dropped 5 seconds off his optimal pace, and he's being caught very rapidly by Alex Capadia. Capadia is absolutely flying in 4th place in car number 4, as we follow Alain Costa, who completes the top 10. Car 20, the Monegas driver. Meanwhile, in the Supersport class, that's currently being led by Bradley Ellis from Marco Cenchetti and Shahin Nouri. Some battles wherever you look through the field. And our race leader, Swift. Well, if they've got the fuel calculation right, it's going to be very different strategies we're going to be seeing from everybody tomorrow, isn't it? But Well, yeah, now that was really interesting, wasn't it, through the chicane, because you could see he was hesitating on the throttle, short shifting, using as little throttle as possible. That suggests to me he knows his margin. Again, through the hairpin, he's not flipping the throttle.
Absolutely, and he's trying to avoid all traces of wheel spin. He's really trying to coax every last milliliter of fuel out of that tank.
It's going to be on absolute fumes at the checkered flag.
There we go, and a very visual indicator there then of the gap back to John Harrison as well, which is now just 6.8 seconds.
Swift has reined it in. He's gapped Harrison for a couple of laps. He's now matching Harrison for pace. In third place, Ross Kaiser. I'm intrigued to see what's going on there with. I just wonder as well, Will, whether Terence Woodward and Ross Kaiser, because they're teammates to James Swift are also doing the no fuel
strategy. Yeah, absolutely. We didn't catch a glimpse of their pit stop there, but yeah, they may well be on the same strategy.
But it's going to cost them a podium, because the drive to watch for is Alex Kapadia. In the 1:43, he's only 4 seconds back from Ross Kaiser. Here's Ross in third place. There's Kapadia in the back of the shot. And Kapadia, he's only 30 seconds off the lead. It's a big ask with 13 minutes to go. But who knows? Here's Ross Kaiser. Let's have a look at the technique. He's being very smooth on the throttle, isn't he?
Yeah. I think you may well be right. They could well be running on the same strategy here.
This is really entertaining stuff as we head into the closing stages of the first Radical European Masters race of the season, and we're about to see a fight for third, because Kapadia coming right up to Kaiser. Now this is going to be the indication as to whether or not Kaiser's trying to make the fuel last, is whether he tries to defend.
Interestingly, if you look at the straight line pit speed trap speeds there as well, as you say, Ross's is quite noticeably down on the others as well. So
yeah, that is odd from Ross. Meanwhile, trying to find his way past Jamie Constable, we have got Marco Cenchetti. Here's a look at that flapping bodywork on Constable's car.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's courtesy of a little bit of damage that he's nursing from earlier on in qualifying.
There you see the wheel arch flapping. Just behind him is the leader of the Supersport, or second place car in the Supersport class rather, Marco Cenchetti. And Cenchetti has got a sufficient gap over Shahin Nouri that I don't think is going to concern him too much. And yes, the move has happened. There is your new third place man. Alex Kapadia through past Ross Kaiser, and Kaiser a 1:50. If he's playing that strategy, I just wonder whether or not there might be something else in play there, because he's 3 seconds slower than James Swift. As Chris Hyman goes lap down to Kapadia. Kapadia's exam question now is 24 seconds to catch John Harrison within 12 minutes. It's 2 seconds a minute. It's not beyond the realms of possibility.
No, at the moment he's lapping around 2.5, around 2.5 seconds a lap quicker than Harrison. So yeah, absolutely, it's not within the wit of man that they could catch him up.
I think at 3 seconds a lap, it's game on. Now, the other interesting thing, as we watch Kapadia, is last time around, John Harrison was 0.6 of a second faster than James Swift. Here's a look at the move from Kapadia to the inside of Ross Kaiser. And Kaiser gives plenty of space to Alex. And the 1999 Formula Euro first champion, 2008 Radical European Masters champion, Kapadia, well on his way. Alex, who had 4 podiums in last year's Radical European Masters campaign, also a string of fastest laps along the way when he was in the mood. Absolutely spectacular driver, Kapadia.
Yeah, you saw quite a spectacular demonstration there of the size of the bump. Really, the only sort of sizable curb anywhere on the circuit is just on the exit of that centre S there. So the car's briefly airborne and pretty spectacular to watch.
So here's the race leader, James Swift. If Ross Kaiser is running at the same strategy to conserve fuel, the fact that Ross is going 4 seconds a lap slower than James doesn't fill me with optimism, either one way or the other. Either it's that Ross is nursing something else, or that James is possibly going to have a fuel tank that's drive the Sahara Desert in June. with several minutes left in this race.
Yeah, there could be a real sort of last-minute sting and tell his race, couldn't there? But no, if if it works, then he's made the gamble of the century pay off.
Just cutting his way through the traffic. That's Philippe Muffat, who goes a lap down. Philippe, who takes Desert Island with him, a Radical, a mechanic, and a bottle of whiskey. The whiskey so that he could drown his sorrows and forget he doesn't know how to drive the car.
Yeah, well, just recorded there, the difference between Swift and Harrison now just down to 5.9 seconds, so he's taken 4/10 out in that first sector.
Meanwhile, back into the pits is Jamie Constable. But of course, that time would have come down because of the traffic for James Swift. So, 10 minutes to go. Across the line comes Swift, and he offers us wait for the time to come through, a 1 minute 47.3, and that is versus a 1 minute 46.2 from Harrison. So the gap is down. You're right, Will. 5.6 seconds. It really is game on. And this is also good news for John Harrison, because it means that although Capadia is catching him, he's not catching him at a rate enough to really make that second place vulnerable.
This will really give confidence to Harrison to know that he's got a radio in his ear. The guys will be egging him on, telling him that he's got the pace to match Swift. So yeah, this is going to make for a thrilling finale.
Brilliant lap as well from Capadia in third, a 1 minute 43.6, comfortably the fastest man on the circuit, and at 4.5 seconds lap quicker than James Swift, and only 25 seconds behind him. Well, that could get very interesting. So Swift, he cannot afford to back off the pace here. If we know he's gambled on the fuel, but the gamble's not worth taking if he has to back off sufficiently to drop to third place.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that we're just seeing another update on. Yeah, so the gap maintained at the moment just under 6 seconds between Swift and Harrison. So Swift has been able to maintain it slightly in this last couple of sectors, but no, this is going to be the last few turners of the race. I think that it'll boil down to, and who's got the nerve really.
John Harrison using the car's aerodynamic potential to its full through turns 13 and 14. As we come to the conclusion of the 29th lap of the race, and James Swift a 1 minute 46.9, and that compares to a 1 minute 46.9 for John Harrison. The gap remains exactly as it was. And getting in amongst some more traffic, Shaheen Nouri is the next target. Just to update you on the Supersport class, no change. That's Bradley Ellis from Marco Cianchetti and Shaheen Nouri. Oh, Capadia, a 1 minute 43.1. He's flying within 21 seconds lead. But for another 2 laps, and it really would be looking good for Capadia. As it is, he needs Swift to be in the 1 minute 47 brackets to make the winner a viable possibility, but all is not lost. And Capadia's other challenge or target here is the 1 minute 42.8 set by Victor Crair on the third lap of the race, and seeing if he can maybe pick that in his closing stages. Yeah,
that'll of course will gain him an extra point for the championship standings, and by anybody's book, it's still a fantastic return to form for this pairing. Of course, Capadia and
Tom Jordan.
Capadia and Patterson were long-time drivers with the Transpower Radical squad, so fantastic to have them back together in the car, and yeah, this is a brilliant return to form.
So here is John Harrison, as just coming into some traffic. That is Philippe Muffat, who is dispatched fairly rapidly, but it's going to have cost Capadia, I'd suggest, about half a second or so, maybe a little bit more, on this 30th lap of the race. Using the car's aero potential to the full. Oh, Swift, a 1 minute 47.9 last time around, versus a 1 minute 46.3 for Harrison. The gap now down to a flat 4 seconds, and I just wonder, with 5.5 minutes to go, if the tank starts to run dry. Meanwhile, here comes Capadia, 13.7 seconds his deficit to Harrison, 17.8 seconds his deficit to James Swift, but 4 seconds quicker on that last lap.
Yeah, that's right. I think we'll probably just get another 3, maybe 4 laps left of the race. So if he's going to make the move, he needs to make it now.
So keeping one eye on the pictures here, and there is the second place man of Harrison, and through that first sector John Harrison was 7/10 quicker than James Swift. He's got Shaheen Nuri up ahead of him, and Harrison will want to put that lap on Nuri as quickly as possible, but Shaheen has been very quick since coming into racing only a couple of seasons ago, but he is also a good respecter of track manners, and I'm sure that he won't get in the way and unduly influence this fight for the lead.
Tell you what, you can just start to notice now as well, though, is that car of John Harrison is just starting to move around a little bit more as the tyres are just starting to reach the end of their lifespan.
And there is James Swift, who is being as gentle as you like on the throttle. Is that my imagination, or did the engine just miss a beat then? I think
that was just as he hopped over the exit of the Centre S, but no, it's really obvious that gap's closed up enormously now. And we'll get a rear clear indication now as they cross the line again of the gap now down to under 3 seconds.
And we have got time for 3 more laps by my reckoning. So James Swift, it is, well, 2.7 seconds between the pair of them, and Kapadia is only 13 seconds back, and at that rate of capture, which was almost 5 seconds last time round, he will be in the mix come the end of the race. But James Swift maybe allowed that gap to close down and going to try and pump it up again. The problem he's got is the clock is working against him, in that only at the end of this lap will they go into the penultimate lap of the race. Swift. Well, Swift was quicker than Harrison through sector 1, so he's rolling the dice again. He's not
doing everything in his power to make himself as light and as aerodynamic and as smooth as possible, I guess.
He will be willing the checkered flag out at the end of this race. So here comes Harrison through sector 2. What's the differential between them? It's gone out again. 3.3 seconds. Well, what a seesaw battle this is turning into. It's just as Harrison was closing up, James Swift reaching into his bag of tricks and arriving at the conclusion of the 32nd lap of the race. We've got 2.5 minutes to go. We have got 2 laps. The clouds are coming in as well, because we did have rain forecast for pretty much all day here in Jerez. It's not proved the case. Right, now what sort of time was that from Swift? He's upped it to a 1:45.0. Where did that come from James Swift? And he's about to put the lap on to Alain Costa. It was 1:45.6 from John Harrison. And that lap time from James Swift as well has been more than enough to ensure that Alex Kapadia, 12 seconds back from lead, isn't going to become a factor in these closing stages. Third is the best that he's going to be able to achieve.
Yeah, he's starting to throw caution to the wind, I guess, here. If it's win or bin time, I guess.
or win and run out of fuel time.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Well, this is absolutely fascinating, really, for the rest of the season, in fact, because it shows that if the right track in the right circumstances, you can make a full tank of fuel go the race duration. But maybe I'm speaking too hastily here, because we've still got 6 kilometres of racing to go. It's Pierre Schroeder. It's about to be lapped by race leader Swift. And through the first sector of this lap, Swift, partly because of the lap of Alain Costa, a full half second slower than John Harrison. It's now Harrison is trying to find a way past Costa. So there is Swift. He's got 2 lapped cars between himself and John Harrison, which means in terms of an on-fight battle for the victory, it's pretty much decided in favour of Swift. The question is now whether or not Swift has got 4.5 kilometres worth of fuel left in the car.
That's right, as he comes round to complete. Oh, and he'll not want to be doing that. Obviously, a bit of a wake-up call there as well in terms of tyre management, not just fuel. But yeah, as we enter onto the final lap now.
If he'd spun it then, he'd have found it's a remarkably long walk to Seville Airport tomorrow night, because he does to be doing that. And James Swift just being as gentle as you like through some of the slower corners. It's quite hard to get a sense, is he backing off, or is it just the natural pace of the car? So the clock ticks to 0. And John Harrison, he's done all he can. It's been caught very, very rapidly by a flying Capadia. Well, that's slightly exaggerated, of course, by the traffic that had to be overhauled on the previous tour of the circuit. So Harrison, just a tenth of a second quicker than James Swift on that occasion. And there is Swift turning through turn 7. He is being caught by Harrison. Just a little bit over this last lap. It was 3.2 seconds between them at the start of the lap. It would look like it's a little bit less than that now. So they're about to come through the second sector. But unless James Swift now suddenly runs out of fuel.
Well, at the moment his intermediate on that last lap was pretty consistent, so he's not displaying any sort of issues at the moment. Certainly in the first two sectors it seemed all as per normal. So,
and he's not quite at the point where he could coast home, but he's not far from it. So into the final turn of the first race of the year comes James Swift. It's been a remarkable drive of consistency and using the strategy to his favour. And Swift comes through and celebrates with the team on the pit wall. He wins the first race of the season in Radical European Masters. Second place goes to John Harrison and Victor Crair, and a fine third to Jamie Patterson and Alex Capadia. And Capadia getting to within just 6.4 seconds of the victory at the flag. Well, James Swift did it. Somehow he made the fuel last. And a really fine drive.
Yeah, that's the mark of a very, very good endurance race there. He's driven absolutely no more than he needed to conserve those fuel and tyres and make it to the end of the race. So a very, very restrained and yeah, very impressive drive.
And every time that John Harrison got to within a couple of seconds, he just begun to pick it up again. Cross line in 4th. We're expecting Manhal Alos
as Alex Capadia gives the thumbs up there to John Harrison, and no, take nothing away from that. He's driven fantastically to second place today, and has really, pushed. Yeah, Capadia obviously visibly delighted with third as well. So yeah, 3. I think it'd be 3 very happy podium sitters there.
And also a nice gesture, and that shows Capadia's experience, is applauding the marshals on the way around, because without the marshals we wouldn't be going racing, and it's always nice to see the drivers acknowledging them, giving up their weekend to allow them to have their fun on the track.
Yeah, that's right. You've just got to see if all 3 of those SRAs make it all the way back to the pits.
It's going to be anxious times, and
luckily I think
just got done in time by the bleak sky above the circuit. It looks darker than the Sisters of Mercy album cover, but they've got the race done more or less in the sunshine, certainly without precipitation on the track.
Of course, one of the big benefits of the Radical SR8 is it's a 2-seater, so at least if he does run out of fuel, there'll be plenty of other people that can give him a lift.
And unfortunately, I think in need of a lift is going to be Jamie Constable. So let's have a look at the final results then. James Swift wins it. John Harrison and Victor Crair in second. In third place, it was Jamie Patterson, Alex Capadia. 4th, Manhalos. 5th, Terence Woodman, Ross Kaiser. 6th, and the first, the Spiders, for James Abbott. And then in 7th place, Jack Bartels, Stuart Mosley. 8th, winning the Supersport class, Andy Cummings and Bradley Ellis from Marco Cenchetti and Marcello Maritiotto. Shaheen Nouri, 11th place. He completes the Supersport podium. And great to see Marcello Maritiotto on the rostrum on his return to racing.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, and I would expect more of the same through the season. They were very, very quick last year, and I'm sure they'll continue that form in 2015.
Well, a lively opening for the Radical European Masters. We've got 2 more races, though, this weekend to look forward to. The first of those gets underway at 10:15 Central European time tomorrow, and our coverage will start about 10 minutes before that. So 10:05 Central European time, just after 9:05 if you're watching us in the UK. And then the final concluding race of the weekend, it's a 2 o'clock CET start time, and so that means that we'll be getting on air about 10 minutes before that at 1:50, 12:50 if you're watching in the UK. And then from Jerez we'll be going on to Dijon at the start of May, then Silverstone 6th and 7th of June, first weekend of July takes us to the Red Bull Ring, and we're on to Monza, start of October, and the season finishing at Yas Marina circuit last weekend of October into the start of November. So quite a calendar for the drivers this year, some really diverse but magnificent circuits.
Yeah, absolutely, and really the floodgates have been open, thrown right wide now. Is who in race 2 and race 3 today is going to think about fuel strategy for their SR8s, and is that necessarily going to carry through to the other circuits? I mean, places like Silverstone and Monza are obviously very, very high speeds, and you'd expect a higher fuel consumption as well. So yeah, this is going to make for a fascinating season.
I mean, I'd suggest this is potentially the only circuit you could get away with it, because Dijon, you've got that very fast final turn, very, very long start and finish straight. The Red Bull Ring, lengthy straights, but then also some quite heavy braking and acceleration areas. And actually, Yas Marina might be worth a gamble, but Yas Marina, you could get away with it.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, ultimately, depending on the circuit configuration there as well.
So, a plethora of talking points from the opening race of the season. It's James Swift who has prevailed. Masterful performance with then John Harrison and Victor Correa. Correa, of course, who led the first 40 minutes of the race, but the additional 30 seconds that they had in the pits during the pit window was sufficient to allow Swift to jump clear, and thereafter there was nothing that Harrison could quite do to close it on James Swift. Fantastic drive in the second half of the race from Alex Kapadia to get within 6.4 seconds of the victory after he took over from Jamie Patterson upon his return to Radical European Masters Racing. In the Supersport class then, it was Bradley Ellis and Andy Cummings who were victorious, clear of Marco Cenchetti, and then Shahin Nouri, despite that early race spin, who came through, finishing 11th place but completed the Supersport podium just clear of Pierre Schroeder. Well, the Spiders making an entertaining race debut. It was James Abbott who was the foremost of the Spiders, just clear of the Stuart Mosley and Yap Bartels car, whilst unfortunately some issues for and then Chris Hyman and Alex Mortimer, then they had their problems and finished in 13th position. So we're going to have a quick look back at the highlights of the race in a moment, and then it's going to be time for myself, Ben Evans and Will Brown to say goodbye for today from Jerez. But of course, make sure you do join us at just after 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So let's take a look back at the highlights from the opening race of the season. And it was Victor Correa who jumped into the early advantage, as behind there was a good fight for second place between James Swift and Manhal Alos. So as Correa streaked clear, and plenty of battles going on behind us, Jamie Patterson, on his return to the championship, is making strong progress, just clear of Alex Mortimer and James Abbott in the two Spiders. Shahin Nouri was well up in the fight for Supersport Honours until that happened. Quick spin, engagement a gear, and on his way again. Real battle in the first half of the race was the one between Terence Woodward and Jamie Patterson, as also battling well with Mike Cantillon and Andrew Ferguson, until Cantillon suffered that issue, and he and Jeremy Constable thereafter had a pretty long day. Stop-go penalty and the like. Jamie Patterson eventually built up the courage to strike the move on Terence Woodward, overcommitted though through turn 15. As all the while, through the first two-thirds of the race, it was Victor Correa who was streaking clear and looking to move well ahead of the rest of the pack. New for 2015, of course, is that longer 20-minute pit window, and that had a big bearing on the way in which the race unfolded. So, not unsurprisingly, Correa staying out until the very tail end of the pit stop sequence, building that buffer, knowing that they were going to be refueling the car mid-race. What they didn't know, though, was that James Swift wouldn't be refueling his car, and therefore, when the pit stops are cycled through, it was James Swift who snatched the lead from John Harrison, taking over from Correa. Some fine battles behind. Manhalos bravely fought his way up through the pack to fourth position. Out front, though, James Swift made the tank of fuel go the distance. He took the win, with Harrison and Correa in second place, and Kapadia and Patterson in third. So a super way to start the Radical European Masters season. Victory for James Swift, and we will be back tomorrow at 10:05 with the second race of the weekend. Until then, from Will Brown and myself, Ben Evans, it's goodbye from Jerez.